It was a very sad day. I don't know how I got through that day, to be fair. We were woken up halfway through the night by screaming girls. It transpired that Ant and Dec were staying at the same hotel. Everybody knew Peter Taylor was going to assist Glenn Hoddle, and nobody had spoken to Dover Athletic. There was a Graham Kelly on the phone, wants to speak to you, John. And I had my meatloaf and Bon Jovi. Well, that was right up their streets.
I just want to get on to Chris.
Yep.
Phenomenal success. What was he like to work with?
Easy. I don't think we ever fell out, to be fair. He'd saying things off to me, but I would never interfere with what he was doing. Never once did I go into a dressing room after a game. Never once. That was down to Chris. We used to, after the game, I mean, when we were in the boardroom, the manager and the referee always used to come over to the lounge, the director's lounge, and we'd have a player of the match award, and the player would come over as well. And it all worked. Directors got to know the manager pretty well, and socially it was good. But yeah, he was easy to work with. Spoke to him most days on the telephone, but he'd always let me know what he was in his mind. But I mean, I wasn't one to know about players that were in London or anything, but Chris would find them and say, I need to sign, and that's the way it worked. I really didn't interfere. As long as we could keep it within some sort of budget that we'd allocated, then it was dead easy to work with, yeah.
Now, John, of course, his tenure came to an end. I remember I was doing my mock exams that day when it
Oh.
came through that Dover had parted company with Chris Kinnear. I think it was the first time we'd lost 4 games in a row at the time, where the team wasn't quite doing it for us. And Chris was having some personal problems. Just tell us about that.
Well, yeah, he was having personal problems. Wouldn't go into any detail, but we were urging Chris to. I went up to see Chris 2 or 3 times at New Ash Green, urged him to take an assistant on. I mean, Nigel Don helped him and took over for a while, but he was insistent, and I even asked or suggested that he'd step back for 6 months to get things clear. But that wasn't an option for Chris, and in the end, yeah, it was a very sad day. I don't know how I got through that day, to be fair.
How did you tell him?
Well, I had to meet him, and it was a sad day. We've remained friends since then. Chris got on with his life. I mean, he went to Margate, didn't he, and did well over there. He got Margate into the conference, so that shows what he was about. And yeah, I don't speak with him at all. I mean, I see I'm friends with his daughter on Facebook, and I see a lot of postings on there. So I think he's playing a grandfather's role now. But I speak to Kevin Rain, and he said he keeps in touch with Chris. So yeah, but we're all getting older, aren't we? I mean, I think he was 31 when he signed in 85. So do your maths. We all get on.
And of course, the club moved on from Chris at that time, and you brought in John Ryan.
John Ryan
was at Sittingbourne at the time.
Yeah.
Did very well. I think he managed Cambridge in the Football League.
Did he? Yeah, he was, again, quite a well-known player and manager, and yeah, he was local. So yeah, we needed to replace Chris, and John came in. Quite the opposite, Chris, quite outspoken, quite loud, but that's the way John was. But yeah, I don't think we did too well with. I remember going to Yeovil. I always remember the wins, don't I, Justin? We went to Yeovil and beat them 3-1 in, I think, his first game. Were you there?
Paul Chambers.
That's right, Chambo played.
Came on as a sub.
Yeah. I think he might have scored a goal. But yeah, one of his first games, or it might have been are you telling me it's his first game?
I think it was his first game.
Well, there you go. And went to Yeovil, who were quite a decent team then, and we beat them 3-1. So we thought, we're up and away. But no, it didn't really catch fire.
We stayed up on the last day, actually. We played Kidderminster Harriers, and Matt Carruthers scored the winning goal.
He did.
And I think Kidderminster might have won the title that year. But that was a very tense day, because actually our goalkeeper was injured. I think Ephraim was injured, and we ended up, luckily, getting Darren Willliams back. We had to beg a favour from Welling to let him come back.
You've either got a good memory or you've been researching, Justin.
No, I remember very well, because there was even a rumour that Paul Chambers might have to go in goal.
In goal. Well, he would have volunteered for that, that's for sure. I think the Chamber would, but yeah. That was quite an interesting period with John. I can't quite remember how we parted company, but...
he lost 9 on the spin.
Did we?
Yeah.
That's where my memory gets better. And we brought in Peter Taylor, didn't we?
Now, Peter Taylor, lovely man. He just managed Southend at the time. He was from the Championship. He was still working for Southend, and he came down. He came down and worked for us, and he did all right. He kept us up, didn't he? He kept us up, but at
almost
the time,
by default that was that year.
Because just to let our younger fans know, Boston United actually had won the division below, but they had fallen foul of the rules. They hadn't posted their application form for promotion in time. They missed the deadline, so only 2 teams got relegated.
Yeah, and we
knew that. We knew that.
Yeah, we were third bottom. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I met Peter up at. He applied. I met Peter up at the Dartford Hotel on Dartford Bridge. We sorted that out. Yeah, it was, again, we didn't win too many games with Peter, but it was quite a good period with him. I always remember, again, we won a game. We went to Runcorn and won 3-1, and the players had decided or wanted that weekend was going to be their Christmas party. Might have been the end of season, well, I'm not sure. But anyway, so we stayed over. We never used to stay over at conference games, but we stayed over in Runcorn. And we were, just an aside, we were woken up halfway through the night by screaming girls outside this hotel where we were staying. And it transpired that Ant and Dec, who were then just breaking out as a singing duo, were staying at the same hotel. So that sticks in my mind. That says how old I am and how long Ant and Dec have been going. Peter came, of course, we lost Peter to England, didn't we?
That was an incredible turn of events. So we finished third from bottom. Glenn Hoddle had just got the England job. Glenn was friends with Pete.
Yeah.
And he said, I want you to be my under-21s boss. But of course, Pete had just signed a contract with Dover.
Absolutely.
So the FA, who, by the way, didn't help us out earlier on by not letting us get promoted, they came begging for a favour from us for a bit of compensation.
Almost. I cannot believe it. You've heard of the illegal approach, Justin. Well, it goes on. It went on 40 years ago. I'm sure it still goes on now. But I had to go to a hearing once when over Mark Harrop. I'm going back. We signed Mark, and I'd had a chat with, and I think Margate weren't very happy about it. So you had to put a 7-day letter in those days. But anyway, I had to go to a Kent tribunal and plead my ignorance of what had been going on. But the FA did the same to us because it was common knowledge. Everybody knew, it was all in the papers, Peter Taylor was going to assist Glenn Hoddle in the England role, and nobody had spoken to Dover Athletic about, can we have Peter Taylor? It was one, I always remember my sister, Brenda, we were working for us when we were running our diesel company. She came in a Friday afternoon about 4 o'clock. She said, there's a Graham Kelly on the phone, wants to speak to you, John. So I said, oh, okay.
And Graham Kelly, of course, was the FA secretary.
Yeah, he was the main man there, I think, on that side. So I said, he said, is that Mr. Husk? I said, yeah, that's me. He said, Graham Kelly. I said, hello, Mr. Kelly. I said, been waiting for a phone call from you for quite a long time. And he was spluttering away and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the bottom line is we did agree at compensation, and Peter wanted to go, there's no doubt about that. And I said to Pete, well, yeah, you can go, but someone from the FA has got to make contact. I'm going back a few weeks and anyway, the deal was done, and Peter also we had Glenn Hoddle down for a charity game.
I was at the golf day at Warming King. I was 19 years old, and I interviewed Glenn Hoddle at that golf day.
Did you? Yeah. I've got lovely photographs with Glenn Hoddle. He brought John Gorman down with himself and, of course, Peter Taylor, and we had a good golf day up there. Not that I can play golf, but it was a good fundraising effort, and a lot of Dover people got a chance to meet Glenn and the team. So that was Peter. We didn't do too bad out of that situation, and Peter went on to, in the end, he had one game as the manager, didn't he?
We were struggling about that time as a club, and of course you brought in Joe O'Sullivan, which I think Pete recommended.
Joe was already part of the team. Joe was with Peter when he came down. They all worked together up in.
So what was it like working with Joe? I mean, it wasn't a very long spell.
No, it wasn't very long.
Quite unhappy because I think some fans did some horrible.
Yeah, I think that's right. He wasn't a very successful time. We thrust him into it, so we basically said, "Would you like to take over when Peter goes?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll do it," but don't think he was over enthusiastic about doing it.
He was a nice man, though, wasn't
he? Oh yeah. So I think, to be fair, I wouldn't speak ill of any of the managers we've had. They've got on with all of them, and then we come to Mr. Willliams.
Yeah, the final manager, Bill Willliams, who was This was the next part of success that the club had, really. So just tell us how that came about, because Bill came with Clive. It was quite an eye-opening appointment at the time, because they'd been out of the game for a little while.
Yes, they had, yeah. Bill came to us. I think he did phone me up, and I said, well, yeah, I hadn't even thought, I don't think. But Bill came down, and Bill was more than a manager. He could organise everything. I remember, basically, we not struggled, but he put Robin Hasey as the kit man. Right, we'd always done it, or someone had always done it, but he said, Robin, you could do it, and he was official kit man, and everything went through Robin for the kit, which is good. So it showed really well Bill and his professional life that he'd had with clubs, and yeah, it went pretty well. I think it was the first or second year we ran Rushden Diamonds really close for Football League, didn't we?
But they signed some of our players almost to sabotage us.
They signed David Leworthy, didn't they?
Yeah. Can I ask you about that? Because I actually met Bill not long ago, and he does always mention that. He says that I said, if I'll take over, but we've got to keep Leworthy, and he agreed to the job, and then he says, you sold Leworthy that day.
Almost. It was quite soon after Bill started, but needs must, to be fair. Justin, we were in a really good position financially. Rushden were not desperate, but anxious to sign him. So it was reluctant. You're not going to sell one of your better players, but David went to Rushden. Yeah, and Bill had to soldier on without David. But you don't always get it's not always up. There's a lot of downs in life and in football, and you have to deal with both.
But Bill actually built a good team, didn't he? And
he did.
He had us up in the top 5.
Yeah, for a long time. That's right. And we were top or second going into sort of February time. Pretty close. In the end, Rushden did pip us. But
back then Rushden had Max Griggs in charge.
Max Griggs, they had Max Griggs and a lovely ground, which we went up there, I think, that year, and we got a draw, 1-1. But they had everything going for them. But again, look where they are now. I saw, funny enough, I said to Liam, in the first extra preliminary round, remember I mentioned we went out to Eastbourne all those years ago, the extra preliminary round this year paired Corby Town, who ran us very close in the Southern League one year, and Rushden and Diamonds in the extra preliminary round of the FA Cup. So they've all reformed, rehoused. It happens to not every club, but a lot of clubs. Some clubs go the other way and done really well. When I look at the Football League, we played most of those clubs. Stevenage Borough were in the conference for a long time. We had some good battles with them. In the old days, when we first started, it was cars. We used to take cars. And Lenny Lee and Mark jumped in my car, early doors. And he said, what you got on here? Because we had the little cassettes in there. And I had my Meatloaf and Bon Jovi. Well, that was right up their street. So every time we played in the way, I'm going with the chairman. He got the music for us, and we used to plonk these cassette discs in the car. And then we got the coach. You heard about the coach, haven't you?
No, go on, tell me the coach story.
Oh, we bought a coach. This was the early doors. It was about 85, 86. And it was an ex-Arsenal Tottenham team coach. And we bought it, Alan and I. Alan saw it. He said, what about it? I said, yeah, okay. So we bought it. And Alan and I used to drive it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. They used to say the only chairman used to drive his team to the football matches. we drove it all over South East England, Dorchester, Weymouth. And the story with Alan was, on a Saturday morning, we'd always toss a coin to see who was going to drive it there. And the winner would always drive it there, because he could have a drink at the other end. And the other twin, because Alan's a twin, had to drive it back. So we had this coach for 2 or 3 years. We took it all over the place. We used to maintain it down our garage. And father-in-law and sister-in-law, Molly's sister and father-in-law, used to come up on a Monday and clean it right through, ready to go for the next game. It was all part and parcel of the way we used to run the football club in those days. We used to take supporters on the football club, on the coach. Yeah. Chris Collins and people like that used to come with us in the early days. It doesn't happen now, I know, and it didn't happen at the end of when we got into the conference.
Yeah, we started getting more professional, didn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Of course, we used to travel by train when we went to the conference. We learnt all that from Dagenham and Redbridge. We played Dagenham and Redbridge early doors in that season, and they said, we talked about different things, and Steve, who ended up as chairman, said, oh no, he said, we go by train, he said, and he gave us an intro to, and everybody seems to know him, Paddy at Euston Station. We used to deal with Alan, brother Alan used to deal with that. He used to book all the seats up on this with Paddy, organise a coach at the other end. We'd do Gateshead and back in the day. We would car it to, because a lot of the players are London based, right? So they used to meet at the station, but we'd take up the ones that weren't in a car into Euston, King's Cross, wherever we were going to. We could go out at 10 o'clock, would put us in, King's Cross, I think, for Newcastle. 3 hours to Newcastle, 1 o'clock at Newcastle. We'd be round the ground by 1:30. And another little tale I always remember, we played Northwich Victoria away.
Oh, wow.
Right?
They had the oldest football ground in the world at
Yes,
the time.
they did. But
drill field.
But also, to get to Northwich Victoria by train, you had to get a special, Paddy had to organise the train to stop at a halt at going up and coming back just outside Northwich, right? It's only a little one station. And it all worked quite well for a season or two. And this good night, we waiting for the train to come back to stop at this halt. And this train comes steaming past the halt about 100 miles an hour. So we all had to wait. What are we going to do now? I said, well, the people said, we'll have to wait for the next one. The next one was the little local one, 2 coaches. And we had to get a football team and all the supporters and directors on this football team, which chugged into Crewe, where we got another London-bound train at Crewe. But it was all part of it was a really good day. When you think back, it's one of the better days. Yeah. But yeah, we had to organise this halt, forget the name of the halt, but they called it something halt, which served Northwich, but it was basically for local trains. But Paddy would organise it, that the fast train would do it for, that'd be the Manchester train or Manchester Liverpool train, would do it for us to drop us off and pick us up on the way back. But
now, of course, John, you were chairman of a board. You had a lot of local businessmen that were involved as well. Some real characters as well. I mean, it was great to see you in Durry the other day, and obviously you had people like Gordon Goodacre, Dennis Hammond, God bless him, Dave Setterfield.
Yep, they were good people, and as I say, that to me is the most important thing, that you got people that you can work with. They were friends. A lot of them were friends before we started the club, so it was easy. I mean, Gordon and Alan, that they were competitors, I suppose. They worked in the shipping business, but I'd known them for many years. John Durrant, as I say, he became the secretary. He lives around the corner from me, and we go out for lunch most weeks, and the ladies get together. Dennis Hammond, we lost Dennis 10 or a dozen years ago now to that dreaded MND. Marion's still bouncing around. I still see Marion. And David Setterfield. David wasn't one of the original ones. David came over to us at the time. David was quite helpful. David actually attended the meeting. I had the inaugural meeting with the Dover District Council in that summer of 83. He was chairman of the Southern League then, and he made the point that the Southern League were not desperate but anxious that Dover would still have a football team in the league next year. So he batted for us in that meeting, and then he joined us in the 80s. Him and Graham Rutherford, another Folkestone man, come over. Graham wasn't actually on the board, but David was. But yeah, David again he's such a gentleman. He used to say to me when we got beat, which was quite frequent in the early days, "Come on, John," he said, "put your plastic smile on." And we used to go back into the boardroom and shake hands with the opposing directors and chairman and say, "Well done," and under your breath. But yeah, put your plastic smile on, John. And David he came and was quite instrumental in preparing the case for when we appealed our exclusion from the conference in 1990. He attended with the FA. I mean, David knew his way around the FA, and I went up with David and as I say, Chris Kinnear. So yeah, we've lost David.
That's very sad, because David actually died watching a game, didn't he?
He did. He died. We were playing Rushden and Diamonds that night. It was an evening game, and he sat right next to me. And just, if you're going to go, that's the way to go. But it was such a shock. And he died. He just slumped against me, and we had a club doctor and other people attending. They couldn't. He'd gone. Just so sudden. David's gone. Ken Stamp, another stalwart of Dover for many, many generations, and we've lost Ken. Ken was always there, do anything for you. He had a big. I mentioned that the striker. Ken had a big wren. He's collected a lot of money for.
He used to do the cashcade tickets as well.
He used the cashcade on a Saturday afternoon. That was his role. Yeah, he liked doing that. He could I don't think I ever bought not bought one, but he always used to get organise all the tickets and all the money, and that was Ken. But say we've lost Ken since then. We've lost Dennis. We've lost David Setterfield. Alan Goodacre is not very well at all. So, but they were good people, and the ones that are still with us, as I say, with John Durrant. I used to joke with John. I used to say to him, I said, bloody hell, Durry, don't those letters ever drop on your floor? Because he'd almost seem to be wait for the letters to come through the post, Dover Athletic letters, and deal with them and put them on my desk or phone me up the same day almost. I said, don't you ever, you catch those letters with the letterbox? But
very efficient.
Yeah, very, very, very. Yeah.
Of course, you had Chris Harmon as well back then.
Yeah, Chris Harmon. I went to school with Chris, and I'm not quite sure how he got involved, but he lived at Maidstone to start with, and then he came to Dover. But he had quite a lot of good ideas. It was, I think, Chris, you remember I think they still do it now, but the 5 tickets for a discount, we introduced that many years ago, and that was Chris's idea. Why don't we give them, if they don't want to buy a season ticket, give them, because people buy a season ticket and you can't attend every game necessarily. So he said, well, we do a little mini one, buy 5 games and come when you like and pay for 5. So that was his idea. And of course, what I haven't mentioned, we used to have fundraising, Sportsman's evenings.
Of course, yeah.
We used to try and do 2 a year. We had some big names. We had Kevin Keegan, had to go to the town hall for Kevin. Alex Ferguson, again the town hall.
What was that like, meeting Sir Alex and Kevin Keegan? I mean, he's
unbelievable, yeah. We had the town hall, we probably sold about 300 tickets for that. This is fundraising, this is what we did. And
how did you get Sir Alex?
Sorry?
How did you get Sir Alex?
There was a chap that we got to know that basically ran the circuit. Not ran the circuit, it was one of the agents that ran the circuits, because a lot of clubs were doing it. So we'd phone him up, and we got Alex Ferguson, Jimmy Greaves. We had Jimmy down for 2 nights at Webb's Hotel. We used to do most of them, all of them at Webb's Hotel. Jimmy down, and we had such a demand for Jimmy Greaves that he did 2 nights on the trot. Jacky Charlton was, again, 2 more nights on the trot. Jacky's only stipulation was, if he's staying overnight, you've got to go fishing in the day the second day. And guess what? We had a good mate of mine, took him out fishing. He loved it. He went out fishing, sea fishing, in my mate's boat. And lovely chap, again, we've lost him, Bob Duffield, took him fishing for the day. And then he did the second night at Webb's Hotel. Denis Law, we had up there. Bobby Moore, Harry Redknapp, and a chap called Bob Bevan. I think Bob Bevan, not footballer, comedian. But again, he used to bring a lot of football stars with him, and I think that night he had the goalkeepers down with him. He was the comedian, but he had Pat Jennings. So we had a lot of good nights and good money spinners. Yeah. And we all used to have the end of season awards up at Webb's Hotel.
Were they not expensive, these guys, though, to hire? I mean,
yeah, they were. Yeah, they some were. Brown envelopes and this sort of thing. Shouldn't say that, but yeah, they were. But with the tickets we sold, I mean, when you think we had, say, 300 at Kevin Keegan's, I mean, they were expensive, but I'm talking about old money. I'm talking about the 80s, so it was not
the money.
The money now, they say these people earn £50,000, £100,000 for a guest appearance these days. Well, it wasn't that sort of money, but yeah, they were paid. But they were all doing it. They were. Keegan was on the circuit, and Alex Ferguson. Timmy Dixon once asked me on WhatsApp. We were talking about it one day on the WhatsApp. Who was your best? And I used to say, well, that one of the best ones was unsung, man, was Jacky Blanchflower. We had Jacky Blanchflower one night up at Webb's Hotel. It was a job to push those tickets because it had been Danny Blanchflower, it had been different. But Jacky brought the house down. So the night that we organised, Alex Ferguson to come down to the town hall, I organised Jacky Blanchflower to come down as the comedian, if you like. Well, he was hilarious. And so he had 2 nights with us.
What was Sir Alex like?
Dour.
Was he?
Yeah. I shouldn't say this, but I sat next to him on the town hall stage, and Liam always laughs. I said I was on the stage with him for 2 hours. I couldn't understand a word he said. He said, well, you want to get your ears sorted out, but he's such a broad accent. Yeah, he was, again, a draw, wasn't he? So, again, we packed the Dover town hall, all the bottom, all the top was packed out with people that wanted to see it. So they were good money spinners. And we used to have sponsors up at Crabble, matchday sponsors. and we'd get them booked up almost a year in advance. They go from one season to another, whatever those games. And some nights, Molly used to say to me, I used to come home about 8 or 9 o'clock. She said, football finished at 5. I said, but you get sponsors that some of them, again, mates that run pubs or whatever, but they were good sponsors. They'd be drinking there until 7, 8 o'clock.
They want your bar open.
Absolutely. Well, as you say, in them days, Chris Kinnear used to come over, and the players, the officials, and it used to turn into quite a good evening. Yeah. But you have to look after people that look after you.
Of course you do. Of course you do. And I want to ask you about the sort of the end of your time as chairman. I believe it was round about that time when, I think just before Gary Bellamy came in, wasn't it?
Well, everybody had basically gone from the board. My brother Alan had packed up about 6 months before. And we'd retired as working men. We'd sold our business, which was Countrywide, which was
the
sponsors, and we'd said basically we can't do much more financially for this football club. So I resigned in 2000, the end of 2000, basically, and that was really my last role. Jim Gleeson took over then for a while, and then Jim finished, and then the supporters got together and felt they could run it.
Of course, that didn't really go to...
It didn't really go. No, you see...
And there was a problem, wasn't there, with VAT on food? There was a
I don't know.
A lot of clubs, actually, quite a lot.
I don't know, to be fair. After 2000, I wasn't that involved. I wasn't involved at all, other than trying to organise the shares.
But were you worried that the club were in real peril at that time? Because, of course, this is the time that Jim Parmenter ended up coming back to the club.
They were in peril. And they weren't when we left. I've got to make that clear. They were indebted to me and Alan, but not unsolvable. And all we tried to do when we passed the club over, and in the end we converted loans to shares, so that made the thing. And in the end, Jim has taken the shares on board and run it, successfully and cleanly since then. There was just that time from 2000 really, until I think Jim took over maybe 2004, 2005, when it was a bit rudderless, should we say. The supporters did their best, but they went to a CVA, didn't it? Which was sad, but they've come out of it. But at the end of the day, at this level now, you need people that are prepared to assist financially.
Yeah.
As well as supporters' aims are, unless there's money going in on a regular basis.
Now, of course, the club had success since Jim's come in. They obviously got the promotion into the National League, was in the National League for almost a decade, almost got into the Football League, in fact, losing in the playoffs.
Yep.
And the stadium's obviously been upgraded, the centre spot's been upgraded. Yep. What do you think of the work that Jim's done actually since he's been there? And he's run it properly, hasn't he?
He's run it.
In terms of the financial side.
I've said to it, he's run it successfully. From a result point of view, they've done pretty well. Again, success is difficult to maintain. And supporters want it, and when it's not successful, support wanes. I've stressed how we used to run it, and I don't say it would be the working model now, but we carried a lot of people with us. Well, I feel now, I go and see them regularly, Justin, that it just feels a bit like the start of when we started now. We've got a manager that is carrying the support with him. We've got people now that are coming back that deserted for a long time. That again, winning football matches and scoring goals is a big help to attract supporters. But there is a good feel about the club, and I just hope that it goes on. I mean, again, there's a lot. I see a lot of Chris Kinnear in Jake. The way he plays, some of the players and the type of players he's got, big and strong, and he doesn't get carried away with winning. And he doesn't get too upset with losing. And Chris was exactly that sort of person. All right, Chris won a lot more than he lost, but so that was good. But no, there's a lot of Chris has rubbed off onto Jake, and wish him every success, and Jim for that matter. Jim, how Jim's managed to stay sane, shall we say, in all that's been going on the last 4 or 5 years. What with COVID and the fine and the 2 relegations, and he's still there and took a lot of flack. I used to take flack.
I mean, do you have sympathy with the flack that he gets? Because obviously you got flack yourself.
Honestly, it's not an easy job running a football club. It really is not. I used to, when we, as successful as we were, we lost 1 or 2 games, and it happened to everybody. You'd hear 1 or 2 people saying, "Come on, get your checkbook out, Husky, and get some money, get some decent players in." It happens to everybody. Luckily, we didn't have quite the relegation problems that handed over, but no, I have every sympathy for Jim. I just hope that, as I say, with Jake there on board, with one or two players that, maybe make a bit of money for them as time goes by, that they'll turn the corner. Yeah, hopefully they'll win promotion this year, and then, well, see what happens next year. It's a different level, but when I look at the teams in National South now, the teams that were below us when we, no disrespect to them, but we ought to be in National South at the very least.
I agree. And finally, John, how are you enjoying going to games just as a football fan now? And you still hang out with people like Durry, comes along, does he?
Oh, there's loads of people I hang out with, if you like, yeah. And I see a lot of people that supported us and me and Dover Athletic years and years ago during the beat. And those people, a bit like you, Justin, they were young men in those days. They're middle-aged and beyond now, but they're still friends. And as I say, I see a lot of them socially, and it's a good afternoon. Sometimes I have to, not so much now because it's a bit more exciting than it was the last 2 or 3 years. But I used to say sometimes, "What's the score at half time?" Because you've been chatting all the afternoon, maybe missed a goal, but not quite like that. But I enjoy it. It's relaxing. There's no pressure on me, except walking up that B slope. But other
got the courtesy car.
I know. I keep thinking about it, but no, I resist that at the